think in general, men believe that it's us who are going extinct. Like, they don't believe that they can think that dating is hard. I'll tell you why. Hi guys, welcome to my channel. All I do is sit on my bed or on my couch, discuss the issues of life, and we discuss it. So the lady is asking, why is dating hard for men? She's asking that. I don't think dating is hard for men. Maybe it can be on the surface, but we live in a society where men are catered for. Like, it's a man's world. You know, men will have varieties of women lined up for them. They don't think that they can go through a pandemic when it comes to women, especially men with filled egos. So I agree, you know, because we as women, we are starting to find ourselves. We are starting to learn to love ourselves. We are starting to actually say bull crap to all of the things that men say about women. We are starting to say that. We are also starting to acknowledge that we live in a society that does not allow women to be. And women are constantly heavily criticized. Men are starting to just experience that now, and they can't handle it. You know, they expect that women in the 90s, in the 80s, the 70s, the 60s had to be that way to survive. You know, we are in a society that allows women to just exist, you know. But let's ditch the videos, and I'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you in my next video.
Dating is so hard for men these days, and they've been saying it. I think we just don't listen. Imagine a family raised in the 90s. Mom, dad, 2 kids, boy and a girl. Mom and dad both wake up, go to work in the morning. Mom's come home immediately after 8 hours without skipping a beat. Takes off her office stuff, goes into housewife mode, cooks, cleans, makes sure dinner's done, homework is done, kids are ready for school. Dad comes from work, takes a beer from the fridge, kicks back, relaxes, maybe watches some football news, whatever. Because he's tired, he's literally done 8 hours of work. What do you want? And these 2 kids watch mom and dad. The boy has been watching dad come from work, kick back, relax, and have all his other needs taken care of without him having to even think about where the salt is, what has been cooked for dinner. The girl child grew up watching the mom and being like, my friend, you're literally doing 2 jobs. You come from work, you come home, you start your second shift. And I understand the women who grew up in this generation and who are wives in this generation, because they had to prove that they could be both housewives and career women. That's the only reason they were allowed to get into the workforce. And I understand the women who are wives in this generation, because when you go to work, you have to do twice the labor to prove that you as a woman are competent enough to hold a job, because otherwise, why are you in the workforce? Second, when you come back home, you have to prove that you're still a good enough wife, mother to your children. So you have to make sure the chores are done, etc., without asking for any external help. Otherwise, why are you going to work? Why do you want a career? Stay home and take care of the kids if you can't do both. So they had to do both to give the rest of us, our generation, the right to be able to have careers, dreams, and have those fulfilled. Now, the girl child grew up watching mom have 2 jobs. The boy child grew up watching dad have a single job and having the rest being taken care of by an invisible hand. In this dating world, they're looking for women who are willing to do both. They're looking for a woman who would be willing to have a career, work as hard at her career, bring in the bag, and come home without skipping a beat, become an excellent housewife and mother without asking for any external help. They watch their mom do it. They watch their moms do it. They don't understand why you can't. The women grew up watching their moms do both, and they're just like, there's no way. It's either you bring in the bag, I take care of the household, or we both bring in the bag and we both contribute to the household. We're looking for 2 different things in the dating world. We're fucked.
This was my experience growing up as a child, and I thought there was something wrong with me. Like, I thought that all the other girls were, dreaming of their wedding and dreaming of relationships. I, from a very early age, was, labeled, a cold bitch and, a man-eater because I didn't dream of my wedding. I was not very romantic. I wasn't very interested in dating. And my mom would ask me when I got to high school and I got to be dating age, my mom was always like, why don't you have a boyfriend? Why don't you have a boyfriend? Why are you interested in boys? And I always reply to her like, Mom, if I wanted a toddler, I would have one. If I wanted a puppy, I would get one. Because I watched my mom do this thing. I watched my mom, not only was my mom a career woman, she was the breadwinner for most of our lives. My dad was sweet, he was sensitive, he was like the artist type, but like guy couldn't fucking keep a job like half of the time. And my mom, you know, bootstrapped it up and made sure she knew that like she had to put food on the table for us. She was the one that worked hard. And my dad was a good father, like he was good at raising kids, but he still had internalized misogyny, and he would constantly complain about things that I think he expected my mother to do because she was a wife. For example, he would complain that the house was messy. He'd be like, oh, your mom like comes home and just like throws mail on the table, like, you know, the house is a mess or whatever. And I remember being very young and thinking like, so clean it. The house is dirty, so clean it. You're at home all day. Like, mom is at work busting her ass to put food on the table. How dare you criticize her for like being messy when she gets home? She doesn't have time. She's at work, like paying for your ass. And so I didn't have a lot of respect for my father growing up. And it's not because I didn't have a lot of respect for stay-at-home dads, but, you know, like I didn't have a lot of respect for someone who got to stay home, raise the kids, and then complained that she wasn't doing both jobs. Like, it was his lack of respect for her that translated to my lack of respect for him. And so I really watched my mom carry the load for our entire family for everything. And then I grew up with the idea that men were just big babies. They were just big babies that you had to take care of, that like you had to like entertain them, and you had to cook for them, and you had to clean for them, and then you had to like, you'd have to like go to work too. So I was just like, what the fuck is the point of having a boyfriend? And I think a lot of girls in my generation watch their mom do the same thing and feel the same way. They're like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm not signing up for that.
This is the problem. We're looking for two different things. When men saw their dads only having to worry about work and having someone else take care of all the other stuff, plus have their own job, they were like, oh, that seems like a great life. This is what I want. Meanwhile, the girls look at their mothers and they were like, this is ridiculous. I do not want this. Men are looking for that old model. And in the caption, she states it perfectly. Men are looking for the wives their fathers had. Women are looking for the husbands their mothers deserved. And as long as men keep having this fantasy that the kind of wife their mom was is okay, we're always going to be fucked. My mom was a wife like that. And for years, I wondered, I just hated the sound of my mom sort of like nagging my dad. And it got more and more intense as the years went by, like screaming at him when he like didn't do something right. And my dad and I were always really close. So part of me was like, oh, God, go easy on dad. Like, what's he ever done? He's perfectly fine. But then when I got older and I realized what the real problem was, I totally understand my mother a lot more. And that she was super stressed because she's doing two jobs. And even still, in retirement, she has to just constantly remind him, pick up after him, do all these things. And part of me is like, I don't really have any sympathy for my dad anymore, because I'm like, dude, it's been 50 years. Like, you've been married to this woman for 50 years. You've lived in the same house for like 25. How do you not know where the blank is? Like, how do you not know how to do X with it? Like, why are you still struggling with these things? I don't know. And my dad's not a bad person. He's a wonderful man. He's not abusive. He's not manipulative. He's been a loving and supporting father and loving and supporting husband. But this is kind of the one area where he just hasn't really been able to completely be on the ball about stuff. But he's from that generation where he saw his mom. His mom was a housewife and his mom did everything. But yeah, as long as we're both imagining, as long as in heterosexual relationships, women are imagining one life and men are imagining a different life, it's never going to work, which is why it's like what I said in my last couple of videos. You have to totally break down the structure of the system as it is and build something entirely new. That's the only way heterosexual relationships are going to be successful, ever. We have to totally break down this patriarchal system that expects women to work full-time and be full-time housewives and build something entirely new and cooperative. It's never going to work otherwise. The past is the past, and even the past we think it was never really existed.
Another thing that's crazy is that when you ask the guy, why does he feel that the woman should hold the house down but also be independent, and then he should only be the provider? He also doesn't know. He doesn't know why specifically the woman should keep the house and build the house and be the one to do that whilst he provides. There's absolutely no reason that they give other than because you're a woman or because that's what my mom used to do. And I think that's why. I think that's why your mom doesn't want you and your lazy brother near her house. She doesn't want you guys around. She hates the when you guys call. She just doesn't want you guys around. After all these years, now that your dad has passed, she's actually finally choosing herself. And when she gets a chance to tell us girls, to talk to us girls, she tells us to stay away from marriage. That's just another thing that I wanted to add. She tells us to stay away from marriage. She's heartful of you guys.
I think one of the biggest lies that patriarchy and capitalism have sold women is that the labor that they do at home, the labor that isn't compensated financially, isn't work. Because all of the labor that's necessary to take care of a family and a community is seen as inherently natural to us, it's not seen as work. And a good example of this is my mom has been a stay-at-home mom since I was 4 years old, when we started moving around because of my dad's job. And for a long time, when I would tell people I have a stay-at-home mom, they'd ask me, so like, what does she do every day? And I wouldn't know what to say, but now that I've grown up and really understood it, my mom does a lot. And the worst part is you're on the clock 24/7. Like, you literally never clock out as a stay-at-home mom. My mom has been a driver, a chef, a cleaner, a personal assistant, a nurse, just all sorts of things. I have no doubt that me and my siblings wouldn't be who we are without that, because growing up, my mom was so attuned to every single physical or material need I had. And my dad wouldn't have been able to do his job where he was literally traveling pretty much at least 60% of the year without her. And on top of that, that extended even further because my mom didn't just do that labor for us. My mom did it for even our family, our entire extended family. Growing up, everybody who had a medical need would come and stay at our house. And my mom would have to drive them around, book their appointments, find the doctor who would help them, nurse them, cook anything that they need for their dietary needs, make sure they have their meds. And we've had people from little kids who need surgery all the way to people who've had cancer and terminal illnesses. And she's had to do that. And the funniest thing is a lot of the people who kind of shame my mom for being a stay-at-home mom have been women who work 9-to-5 jobs. And it's so ironic to me because I don't think they realize that they have it even worse because they're expected to do all of the labor that my mom does and go and work full-time at a job where they have to work twice as hard to prove they deserve to be there. And I think a lot of young women are realizing that this isn't fair, like this is too much work. And that's why, to be honest, I don't believe in going 50-50 financially with a man unless you're also going to go 50-50 on all of the labor in your life and at home. And to be honest, it's looking like that's going to have to be necessary because most households now need 2 incomes. And that's why I think young women should be very careful about who they marry, because marriage is not just about love. It's about economic power and financial access. And are you ready to do double the labor and have baggage with you for a man?
So a big part of the conversation that's being left out of this whole discourse is the fact that women now talk to women and are able to do something about it. If you go into a situation and you talk to a man and a woman who come from the same family, the woman will be able to tell you all the emotional labor and the emotional hardships that was taking place by the women in those families. They'll tell you who cheated on who. They'll be able to tell you who was harming who like ate who, which uncles and whoever to stay away from. They will be able to tell you all these things, and the men will not be able to. Why? Because the emotional labor of families are passed on through generations through the women. Because the women are the ones that are oppressed and having to deal with everything, they talk to each other to teach them how to survive. I don't think y'all are understanding that. They're teaching how to survive. When women started getting rights and the ability to be able to stand on their own without men, women started preaching to their girls, their daughters, their nieces, any of the younger women around them, to not put yourself in a place in which you cannot provide for yourself. Because if that man ups and leaves you for another woman because you're aging, if that man ups and leaves you because he just simply doesn't want you anymore, or if he fucking dies, what are you going to do? A lot of us were also told that you need to not have more children than you can provide for. Why? Because what happens if he leaves? This is also the same sentiment that a lot of women get when they have children or are choosing to decide if they're going to have a child, is that if and when you have a child, that is your baby, not his child. Now, at the end of the day, that is your baby that you're going to have to provide for. And let me tell you how it is not just black women telling this. This is women across the board who started communicating and telling the younger girls and women around them to be able to stand in this society for yourself. I have worked in different jobs. One of the jobs in which I worked at, it was a bunch of white women. Like when I say there was like shit ton of white women, and we would have discourse, because that's what happens when people work together. They talk about their lives and all these things. I have been told by multiple white women do not have kids with a broke man, married for money, and to also not have children in your 20s. This is why they're telling women to go to school, to have careers, and to be a self-sufficient woman, and to be whole on your own, and then to marry. But back to my point, is that the reason why a lot of women are talking and telling them and warning these women is because women were miserable. Our mothers and our grandmothers and our aunts and these beautiful women who came before us were miserable, and they are warning us to not participate in that misery.